Hi friends, welcome to Programming Made Easy. This is Santosh Avalamurthy. Today we are going to see a very important topic in VC++ MFC, that is model versus modeless dialogs. Any VC++ MFC interview will not be completed without asking questions on these model and modeless dialogs. And believe me, if you are doing any programming in VC++, MFC, if you are developing any application, you are bound to use these model and modeless dialogs. In case if you have not subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to get the notifications. And thank you so much for everyone for watching the videos. And I request you to encourage me in the same manner so that I can bring more and more videos which can help you to gain more knowledge in VC++ and MFC programming. Now, what is model versus modeless dialog boxes? In fact, we have been using these dialogues in our day-to-day lives, but maybe you are not aware of what is the difference between a model and a modeless dialog box. A model dialog box requires the user to respond before continuing the program. That means these dialog boxes will block your uh, navigation or your work with the parent dialog box until you close these dialog boxes. That means these dialog boxes, the dialog boxes model and modeless, we can call them as child dialogs, and they are called or initiated by another dialog or another class which is called as parent. Now you cannot go back to the parent unless you close these dialog boxes. Whereas modelless dialog boxes which stay on the screen and are available for use at any time but permit other user activities. That means you can work parallelly in your parent dialog or the parent window, as well as you can work in the modeless dialog box or the child dialog box. Now, what are the examples for model and modeless dialog box? Now, model dialog box, for example, print screen, that is a model dialog box. So, unless you close that window, you will not be able to go back to your parent window. Whereas search dialog boxes are modeless dialog boxes. Okay, so you can search and parallelly you can type your search text in the search window, and the search will happen in the parent window. For example, both we can see in most of the applications. For example, if you take the example of Microsoft Word, where there is a search window. So you can search and you can search it in your main window. Whereas if you go for print of the document, unless you close the print window, you will not be able to do anything in your main document, right? So that is the difference, major difference between model and modeless dialog boxes. So we'll be seeing few more differences in the coming slides. Now, the resource editing and procedures for creating a dialog template are the same for model and modeless dialog boxes. So the way you create the dialog, the way you add the buttons, the way you add the member variables, member functions, everything is same for a model and modeless dialog boxes. So what majorly the major difference comes is the way you create these dialog boxes. Now, how do we create a model dialog box? So first and foremost, you should have a dialog. So once you create the dialog and you add all the functionality to the dialog, you include that header file in the calling dialog or the calling parent application. So let me give it as model versus Modeless. So I'm going to create a dialog based application. Click on finish. So what I'm going to show you now is we'll have a single dialog which will be created as model as well as modeless. So let me add few buttons here. I'm going to create three buttons: model, modeless, and one more button I will create to get the text from my modeless dialog. So this is model, modeless, get such text. I'm going to create a new resource now. I will create a new dialog, and in this dialog I will add an edit box. So this button will set such. So what it will do, whatever you type here, that it will set to the member variable of my parent window. Now every dialog you see, there will be by default OK and cancel button will be added. Now if you see this button, this ID of this button will be ID OK and this will be ID cancel. So these are the IDs which will be used by MFC for the OK and cancel buttons. Now what we will do now let's see how to add the buttons, how to create the dialogs. So this is my model. So first thing is include, I need to first create the class for this particular dialog. So I'll say add class and I'll give it as test dialog. Finish. So these are my this is my class which is added. See test dialog. So here I'm going to add a member variable to this edit box, which will be a string variable. This will be accessing the value of this from my calling function, calling window m underscore str text. It's a value data type which is of type C string. So now what I will do, let's see how to create a model dialog box. So I'll include this particular class here, dialog.h. Now here I'm going to add functions for each of these buttons. So this is model, this is modeless, this is get search text. Now let's see how to create a model dialog box. So what I will do, C test dialog and DLG. So in order to create a model dialog box, all you need to do is DLG dot do model. Now only if user presses OK button, then only I want to fetch the value. DLG dot do model is equal to ID OK. Then I want to print the value of the text entered by the user in the edit box. So that is DLG dot m underscore str search text. Clear? So that is how we create a model dialog box. So you have to include the header file, then you have to create the object of the class, click on and then call do model function, and then you access the member variables, and even you can call the member functions of that particular dialog. Now here in my test dialog, view my okay. So in my CPP, I will add on OK function here, where I will update, or I will call update data. Now, as you all know, when we call update data, the value entered in the edit box will be assigned to the member variable. Now let's run and see what will happen. Now what we did, we had one dialog based application. We added three buttons, model, modeless, and get the text, search text. Then we created one more dialog where we added edit text. Now then we created the same dialog, or we displayed the same dialog as a model dialog box. So what we did, we created the object and then we called do model function. After that, if the user has pressed OK button, then we are displaying the value entered in the edit box. Now let's run and see what will happen. So the majority of the times you will be using model dialog box. So if you want to pass any values from your calling window to the model dialog box, that you can always do it. So your model dialog box also will have many functions. So you can call any of those functions and you can pass the values, or even as part of the constructor, you can pass the values from the calling function to your dialog, that is the child dialog. Now this is my model dialog box. Now you see I will not be able to do anything till I close this dialog. I cannot go back to my parent window. So that is the main property of a model dialog box. You cannot go back to the parent window unless you close this window. So let me cancel. Now I can go back to this. right? Now let's see, I'll enter a text. This is sample text. When I click OK, the message is displayed here. That means, so on OK button, we are checking if the user has clicked on OK, then we are getting the value of the member variable of my model dialog box. If you see here, if I press cancel, the message box is not displayed because we are expecting the user to click OK button. Now if I say cancel, the message will not be displayed. Right? Now let's see how do I create a Modeless dialog box. So let me go back to my calling dialog. Now this is where I'm going to create a Modeless dialog box. Okay. Now in order to create Modeless dialog box, as we saw the steps, we need to create a pointer object using new function. So C test dialog star p dialog is equal to new C test dialog of this. So basically what we are doing, we are passing the parent window pointer to your Modeless dialog box because it has to communicate back to the parent window for any data exchange. So we need to set who is the parent for this particular dialog. So once we do this, then we need to call create function, and then we need to call show window function. Okay. So now for the create function, we need to pass the ID of the dialog so that you can get it C test dialog colon IDD. If you give, it will automatically take up the ID which is assigned to the dialog. Okay. Now build a solution. Now we are able to create the Modeless dialog box. Now let's see how this will work. Okay, so the dialog is created. I can move it. I can work with the parent window. I can work with the child window. Both can happen simultaneously. So this is the difference between model and modeless dialog box. Now earlier when it was model, you are not able to go back to the parent window. Now it is modeless. I can go back to the parent window. In fact, I can work with both the dialogues simultaneously. Now this is not giving any of the much important function. So what we do now is the user will type the text and he will set it to the member variable of the parent window. So that assume if this is a document where I need to search for the text entered by the user, so the user will type the text, he will set the text, then the text will be searched in the actual document. Okay. Now to do that, I'm going to add a member variable to my class, that is model versus modeless dialog. Add variable. So variable of type C string here. So there is no option here. We will add it as integer. or character, then we will change it. M underscore str search. So we can also add the variable by directly adding the variable to the header file and then to the CPP file. So the easiest way is to right click on the class and then you can say add variable, or you also can add the function if required. Now since the variable is added, we will quickly change the type. So this is my header where I will change, instead of unsigned char to C string, and also in my constructor I will be changing it to assign to empty text. Okay. Now what we do, we will just change the set variable function to set the value entered by user to this member variable of the parent dialog. So that we will do in test dialog. So we will first include this header file here, and we will also assign the parent window to this window, because we are passing the pointer to the parent window while we are calling or creating the object. So that pointer is passed here, which will assign as parent window for this particular dialog, that is p parent. So we included the header file, then we assigned the parent window pointer to the pointer which is passed to the constructor, which is nothing but the model versus modeless dialog, that is the parent here. So what we do, we declare that we access the parent window. We'll typecast to modeless versus modeless dialog pointer, and then we access the member variable. C model modeless dialog m underscore p parent window m underscore str search text is equal to m underscore str search text. So this is my parent window, which is of type model versus modeless dialog, and I'm assigning its member variable and then I'm setting the value. Now in the parent window we will display this value. AFX message box m underscore str search text, right? So what we did, first we created the pointer of the dialog. This is, we are creating modeless dialog box. We created the pointer and we passed this dialog as a parent window pointer. This means this is a calling window. Okay, so it will pass the pointer. This window pointer is passed to this particular constructor of this modeless dialog box. After that, we called create function by passing the ID of the dialog. After that, we clicked show window, which shows the dialog box. Now, in the Modeless dialog box, we wrote a function to set the value entered by the user to the member variable of the parent window, that is model versus modeless dialog. And on the third function, that is button click, we are displaying the value that was set by the modeless dialog, that is the test dialog. That value we are seeing here. Now let's see what happens. So I'm creating a modeless dialog box. Then I'm typing here, this is sample text, and I call set search text button, which is actually setting the value entered by the user to the member variable of the parent window. I am setting it. Now we will see what is the value that is set by clicking on get search text. Okay, so let's see what is the problem. So let's see what value will come here. I'm going to search the text, get search text, no value. Why? So let's go back to the code and see. So here in this button set search text, we forgot to call update data. Remember, if you don't call update data, the value that is entered in the control will not be stored to the variable, right? So now let's see what happens. So let me close this. Modeless. So I'm going to type here, this is sample text set get. Now the value is coming, right? So this is how we create a model and modeless dialog box. One last thing, so whenever you are creating modeless dialog box, since it is getting created as a pointer, we should clear that memory by calling delete this function, preferably in the on close or on post nc destroy function of your dialog, that is your modeless dialog. So that is how we can avoid the memory leaks. So just keep in mind, so whenever you are calling a variable, whenever you are creating a dialog as a modeless dialog, make sure that you delete the dialog. So once that dialog is closed. Now here you can see here it is showing there is a memory leak of 56 bytes because we forgot this dialog, deleting the dialog, because it is created as a pointer, it is created on a heap memory. Now to avoid that, so what I will do is I'm going to add function where I'll be deleting the dialog pointer. Okay, test dialog, right click, class wizard, on close, go to messages, on close, edit the code, say delete this. Now let's see if we still see this particular memory error. Okay, modeless. I'll just close this. Then I click OK. So now there is no memory leak here. So that means the dialog is deleted. So that's all about the coding, folks. So just keeping just a quick recap. So we created a modeless dialog box by creating a pointer. Then we called create function, and then we called show window function to show the dialog. Then we can set the variables values in from the modeless dialog box to the parent window. It actually vice versa is also possible. Once you created your modeless dialog box, you can call the member variables and the function from your parent dialog also. Now let's get back to the PPT. I hope you understand how this is done. So let's go back to the PPT. Now let's see some of the interview questions. As I told in the beginning, no interview will be over without asking questions on dialogue based and the model and modeless dialog boxes. Let's quickly see few of the interview questions. Now, what is the difference between model and modeless dialog box? So there are plenty of differences. So let's go through them. First, I will cover model dialog box. One, it requires the user to respond before continuing the program. So that we saw. So unless I close the dialog, I cannot go back to my parent window. It does not allow the user to access the parent window while the dialog is open. Now it captures the message loop. That means the message loop of your model dialog box will be the main message loop till you close it. So that is why it captures the message loop. So we will not be able to do anything in the parent window. So why we cannot close this window is mainly because it occupies the stack area of your memory. So it is created as a static. It is not created dynamically. Now coming to the Modeless dialog box. So first it is available for use at any time but permit other user activities that we saw. Parallelly you can work with Modeless dialog box as well as your parent window. So it can be open in the background, and Modeless does not captures the message loop. So that means each individually your parent window also will have its own message loop, and also your Modeless dialog box will also have its own message loop. So the main memory that it occupies is heap area. That is why we create Modeless dialog box using new function, and it gets created dynamically, whereas model dialog box is created statically. So how do you create model dialog box? So model dialog box is created with these steps. First you have to include the header file. Second one, you create object of the class. Third one, you call the doModel function. Now how do you create modeless dialog box? Include the header file, then create a pointer object of the class, and also you have to pass this to the constructor so that you can set the parent window. Third one, you have to call create function, and fourth you have to call show window function. Remember, a show window function is required to be called if ws underscore visible property of your dialog, your modeless dialog, is set to false. If underscore visible property is set to true, then there is no need to call show window function. So I've given a small assignment for you, so where you can practice it. So first you create a dialog based application. So you create two dialogs. One is a model dialog box, another one is modeless dialog box. The model dialog box is used to enter the student information, that is the ID, name and date of birth. So create this dialog as a model dialog box, and when the user clicks on OK button, you get the details of the student. That means you have to display the values of the variables entered in the individual controls. Now, the Modeless will be a search dialog box to search the students based on the ID. So create the dialog as Modeless. So basically it will have a simple edit box and then search button. So when you say search, then basically you have to set the value of the ID in the parent window and you have to search for it. So once the user enters the student ID, display the student ID in the parent window entered by the user. Now remember one thing, so you can always call the functions of your parent window as well as you can call the functions as well as member variables of your child window. Okay, it is possible. So with a limited time, so I have just shown you how to access the member variables. Similarly, you can also access the member functions if they are public functions, right? So that's all folks I have today and thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked the video. So do comment on my video, share it and subscribe if you are not subscribed and click on the bell icon to get the notification. Once again, thank you so much for watching. See you. Bye bye. Take care. Till then. Stay home. Stay safe.